welcome to your favorite bookish podcast, Fully Booked and Caffeinated. I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Heather.
And today we will be discussing and reviewing Slewfoot, A Tale of Bewitchery by Brom. Before we get into our fuel for the discussion, we just want to apologize that this episode is late. Technology wins again, okay? Because there was that stupid outage at the beginning of the week. And
it really screwed up so many things.
My whole school portal wasn't working.
Yeah.
It didn't mess up anything at work, which is like very annoying because that would have been more convenient for me.
Right.
And then you said it messed up daycare stuff.
It did.
Mm-hmm. So it was just a big nonsense. Then we got up, we were sitting in front of my camera, my microphone ready, and I'm like, oh, Riverside is not working. So anyway, so we had to kind of shuffle, and now we're delayed a little bit. But we hope that you were patiently waiting. We hope that you actually want to listen to our episodes. Anyway, okay. So what are you drinking, Heather?
I actually just did a quick little night Acme trip because we needed a couple things. So I stopped at Starbucks and got my white chocolate mocha. I'm just patiently, parentheses, not so patiently, waiting for their holiday menu. I can't wait.
Yeah, a peppermint mocha sounds so good right about now. Like
I know.
A hot one from Starbucks.
I know. I just love the hot caramel brulee latte. And that's like all I've been thinking about. And I just want it.
Because it has been brisk in the mornings.
I know. It's been wonderful.
And as I talk about all the time, I'm not a hot coffee person, but I haven't turned the heat on in my house yet. And it's been 60 degrees, which doesn't sound that crazy. But when you're just sitting here at the computer and you can't feel your fingertips, that's a little bit cold.
Why don't you turn the heat on?
I just haven't committed yet. Okay. I also have never turned on the heat in this house. So I'm like,
it's
gonna
smell.
It's going to smell.
You're going to have that whenever
and
you
I have
first
the
turn the heat on.
radiators and I don't want Momo to burn herself. Anyway, so I'm like, wow, I could use a nice warm coffee in the morning to warm up these fingers.
Hands.
But on Monday when we're supposed to record, I was like, wow, I've gotten coffee out 3 days in a row.
Wow.
And I'd gotten my iced butter pecan coffee, but that was, 5 days ago at this point. So I just had my regular Nespresso this morning. Anyway, cheers.
Cheers.
Forgive us. This episode is going to be weird. Okay. It's not our normal routine.
No,
and
we're all thrown off.
I'm very thrown off when my routine is thrown off. But anyway, okay. So let's talk about Brom, or Gerald Brom.
His name is Gerald?
Gerald. He was born in 1965.
Oh, damn.
So he's 60 years old.
All right.
Yeah. And he was born in Georgia. He's mostly an artist and illustrator. At least that's how he started. So his illustrations have been used in video games, card games, comic books, the cover of other authors' books, like a lot of places. Like he's very widespread, and he's had a very far reach in the art and illustrating world. Mm-hmm. And then he wrote several novels, a few graphic novels, and even a few books that are consisting solely of his art.
Oh, wow.
He actually has a novel which is a dark retelling of Peter Pan called The Child Thief, which I also want to read.
Oh, that would be
because that sounds really good. So this book, Slewfoot, the book that we're reading, was published in 2021, and this has definitely become a type of like cult classic. It's all over Book Talk, but it's definitely not as mainstream as some of the other witchy books that we talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had been wanting to read it for so long. I don't know why. I just kept putting it off. And when I did first read it in 2024, actually like just a year ago, mm-hmm. I was pissed that I had waited for so long. So I always do that to myself. All right. So before I read the book summary, I decided I'm going to start including Storygraph's AI summary of the Who's It For. Have you read these before?
No.
Oh my God. I love reading them so much. Okay. So here we go. For readers drawn to savage folkloric horror about woman as witch colliding with patriarchal faith, raw nature worship versus puritanical fire. Ideal if you crave brooding colonial gloom, measured yet relentless pacing, primal gods, bloodsick ritual, and lush full-page art that makes the wilderness feel alive and watching.
Wow, and this is on Storygraph, you said?
Yeah, and Storygraph actually they have this. It's like if you go to the book and you scroll down, first there's the AI summary, who's it for?
Okay.
And then there's a different tab that's a personalized AI, which it'll be like, oh, because you read this one recently, or because you've been reading super dark books recently, this one might be a refreshment. Yeah, it's very fun. So anyway, I'm going to add that to our reviews now.
I think
it's fun.
Sounds like a great idea.
It's just a lot of words, a lot of powerful words put together. It's like a word salad. Anyway, here's the real summary. Connecticut, 1666. An ancient spirit awakens in a dark wood. The wild folk call him father, slayer, protector. The colonists call him Slewfoot, demon, devil. To Abitha, a recently widowed outcast, alone and vulnerable in her pious village, he is the only one she can turn to for help. Together, they ignite a battle between pagan and Puritan, one that threatens to destroy the entire village, leaving nothing but ashes and bloodshed in their wake. See, I don't like this summary. It really gives away the ending. This is different than the summary that was on Goodreads, and I was like, this one really tells you about that ending. Anyway, okay. Here we go. So, immediately we meet Abitha, who is in the States because her father sold her in a mail order bride type situation from London.
Mm-hmm. Love that.
Love that for her. And Abitha's not cut out for the oppression that women are facing in the States in the 1600s.
Definitely not.
Relatable. She curses, she fights, she has anger issues, and she does not like to be told what to do. Abitha and I have a lot in common.
You and Abitha are pretty much one and the same.
But she is a better woman than me because she really bites her tongue for a while there. But she did luck out, and it seems that her husband is a nice guy. So she did get very lucky in that department. He's very passive, but he's gentle, and they seem to get along fine. And he does seem to really love her, maybe not in like a passionate wife way, but in a familial, caring type of way.
Yeah, it's more like a companionship.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's obviously not what the picture of marriage is in this time frame. So they're kind of doing it their own way. But Edward's brother Wallace sucks. I could have told you he sucks by his dumbass name.
I was just going to say, Wallace is not a good name.
He takes advantage of Edward, which pisses Abby off. And also he doesn't like a woman to exist. So he and Abby butt heads about that a lot, which is hard because Abby knows that Edward is the one who will suffer from her behavior, but it's easier said than done to put up with Wallace, especially when she knows how good of a person Edward is and that he's being constantly taken advantage of and that Wallace is doing it on purpose, you know? Yeah. So Wallace made some bad business decisions and finds himself in debt to Lord Mansfield, and he puts Edward's farm up as collateral since technically their father left it to Wallace, and Edward was in the process of buying it outright but had not yet paid off his debts. I thought this was really well explained, how this all works, because otherwise I would be like, how does land work, you know? So we're introduced to our first ominous horror element, which is this deep, dank cave where people can overhear children giggling. And it turns out that's where the character we'll come to know as Slewfoot is hiding. He's also referred to as Beast or Father. Meanwhile, there's 3 weird woodland creatures that have bodies of animals and faces of children, which sounds terrifying. There's a raven named Sky, an opossum named Forest, and a fish named Creek. Not very inventive with the names, but that's okay. So they're trying to hype up the beast to slay everyone, to just out here slay left and right in order to get enough magic from a magic tree. This is weird. It starts to make sense. But the beast is having an existential crisis because he can't remember his purpose.
Yeah.
And he's like, do I want to just be slaying left and right? I don't know. And he keeps having these flashes of a town completely destroyed, blood and bodies everywhere that he knows that he was somehow responsible for. But then there's other visions too of woodland creatures bringing him gifts and treating him like a god. And he's like, if I was just this big slayer, would these creatures be worshiping me? So we're getting these flashes back and forth of this dark fairy tale supernatural lore interspersed with Abby and Edward's life. And in their life, they're trying to conform to this puritanical and religious society, which is obviously such a juxtaposition from this dark fairy tale. So unexpectedly, Edward dies pretty early on.
Yeah, he
and
does.
Abitha gets the opportunity to keep their farm as long as she can plant and seed it herself and pay off the remaining loan that she owes Wallace, which is much easier said than done. So Abitha's going about her business, taking on the near impossible task of seeding and harvesting an entire farm by herself. But the woodland creatures and the beast take notice of her because she lives close to their woods. And Forrest convinces the beast that he needs to kill Abitha for coming near their woods. I'm not sure. Because, like, she might get too close to their magic tree. But when the beast goes to touch her, they have a spiritual connection and they're able to see each other's thoughts. So the beast is still trying to figure out who he's meant to be because he's getting conflicted feelings, but he knows somehow that Abby has to be able to help him because of this weird connection. Like that has to mean something. So a bunch of stuff happens, but the point is Abitha begins making offerings to him and he returns the favor to her by using magic to grow her crops. And it's kind of cool the way they describe it, that they like put their magic together, or that he's not capable of it without Abitha's help. So he does need her in order to discover this part of himself. And basically it's a mutually beneficial relationship because he's starting to feel more like himself or starting to see more aspects of his personality. And she's obviously getting her crops grown, which she was not doing by herself. And meanwhile, she is in a war between her, not necessarily her beliefs, but what she's been taught. So her Christian dad, who was very horrible and an alcoholic and abusive and awful, was very much of the mind of this Puritan values and, you know, Christian values, whatever. And that's the same as the community that she's now living in. But her mom's beliefs growing up were very much witchy, of nature, of the earth. So it's hard because she's always been more drawn to her mom's way of thinking and like using nature, using the things around her, charms, and not necessarily spells. It's not like overly witchy from what she took from her mother's teachings. Obviously, there's this scary goat creature and these little animals with human faces, and she's like, this doesn't seem like it's anything that came from the Bible.
Absolutely not.
And then she keeps having these visions of Edward's ghost, and she can't tell if he's coming to warn her or to guide her. And it's just very hard because she obviously is getting something out of the beast helping her because her crops are growing, but she's like, am I making a deal with the devil? Did I sell my soul just to get these crops? And then she's like, well, I don't really have another choice, so whatever.
Realistically, what other choice does she have?
Yeah, and at this point it's too late. So she persists in getting to know the beast because he did help her after all, and she renames him Samson. At first he's like, and she's like, no, it's a good thing. And he's like, okay. And they have a little magic friendship, but she gets confirmation that he's the one who killed her goat and Edward.
Mm-hmm.
And she struggles with that, obviously, because she also starts to hear other things that he'd done and other people that he killed or hurt. And she worries because what she's seeing from him, she doesn't see him as violent. But obviously he is. And what if he turns on her? And to Samson's credit, he's very like apologetic and says, you know, I was just kind of doing what came instinctually to me. And now I'm trying to figure out who I really am, if I'm supposed to be helping people or hurting people. Like, he's very open about the fact that that was a mistake.
Yeah.
And that he wants to kind of earn her trust or friendship. So because of the magically growing crops, Abitha is finally free, and she knows that she'll be able to pay off Wallace and have the farm free and clear. But Wallace isn't having it.
Wallace has other plans.
He tricks some indigenous people into helping him break onto her farm in the middle of the night to steal the corn. But there's so much corn because they grew so many magical crops that he simply can't steal it all. And so he sets fire to the barn instead, burning all the crops. So Abitha is once again wondering why God is punishing her by having all of these horrible things happen. And she's out of options. Like, she already had made up her mind that she wasn't going to be able to do this. And then she got this like boost of, oh my God, like this amazing thing happened. And because of this magic, I'm going to be able to have my life back. And now it's being ripped away from her again.
Yeah.
So she decides to just live out her remaining time as a free woman, since she knows that she'll be indentured to Wallace forever to pay off her debt. And obviously she'll lose her farm. So as Abitha's trying to embrace and prepare for her dismal future, she and Samson continue to perform magic together, and their power is growing. So they connect with the bees, who reward them with tons and tons and tons of honeycombs. And again, Abitha feels that God or the universe or Samson himself has rewarded her. And there's no way that this could be something so dark and so bad because of all of the good that's coming from it. Meanwhile, Forest, Creek, and Sky are still trying to get Samson to return to his slaying ways. And they know that Abitha is putting all of these thoughts in his head about him not being a massive slayer. So they decide they have to kill Abitha. So they channel their little woodland creature magic into controlling snakes and insects. It's giving the scene at the end of The Craft.
Yes.
That's
so
all
right.
I could think about. Just and especially because it was like in the outhouse, and you know they have him coming out of the toilet. And she's attacked by the poisonous creatures, and she gets so many bites. They attack her, even though she does kind of stop before walking into the trap, because Edward kind of comes and like warns her, but she still gets bitten. So it wasn't that good of a warning. Anyway, so as she knows she's about to die, she calls upon ancient magic from her mother and other female ancestors, and she channels the power of Mother Earth to push the poison from her body.
Wild.
Which sounds very cheesy, but actually was very cool because of the way that she's seeing her mother and these other female ancestors kind of surround her, and that gives her the strength to call upon the magic that's already inside of her.
Yeah, that was a really cool moment in the book that I enjoyed.
And Samson is like, oh damn, if we have Mother Earth on our side, we can definitely find out who I'm supposed to be. Also, you can probably fly. And Abitha's like, what? She still doesn't believe. Well, getting rid of the poison is kind of the first instance where she's like, oh, should I actually have magic?
Yeah.
Because everything else was with the help of Samson, and it was kind of like she could say, oh, that was just his magic and she was just like
Mhm.
there for it, or she was helping him find that power within himself. But this is the first thing that she does that's like so evident and so personal.
Mhm.
And so she's not really thinking about all the other things that she can do because she just realized she could do this. But he's
Mhm.
like, oh, here's a broomstick, which is like a true witch, like a true
Mhm.
witch cliche. And so they fly. They get on the back of her broomstick and they're flying all over the place. And they fly back in time?
Yeah, that was
Question
crazy.
mark? This
Yeah.
part was unclear. But she wakes up naked in the soil outside, feeling like a very powerful witch. And clearly, she has kind of decided that this is her true nature and that she can't be doing something wrong by embracing her true nature.
Mhm.
Especially when she has these visions of her mother. And so she's like, how can this be evil if my mother is supporting it? So a few days later, Wallace comes with the sheriff and the reverend to evict Abitha and take her to jail, where she'll stay until they determine her sentence of servitude. But not so fast, because Abitha does have the payment she needs. And Wallace
Mhm.
is pissed. And Abitha is just such a queen because she really
Mhm.
milks this. She really stretches it out. She's like, oh, would anyone like to come in and sit for some tea? And they're like, Abitha, you're going to jail. And she's like, oh, I was unaware. Is the due date today? And they're like, yes. And she's like, well, then I have till the end of the day. Anyway, so Wallace can't believe that she outsmarted him again because, like, a woman?
Yeah.
Smart? How?
How dare.
So he goes to attack her. And the other dudes are like, bro, relax. Like, it's not that serious. She did what she was supposed to do.
Mhm.
But he starts accusing her of witchcraft and rides off with a promise to report her. So he recruits the town weirdo Ansel, who is constantly searching for evidence of the devil.
Mhm.
And just, he's a true busy bee. He's
Mhm.
watching through people's blinds. He's hiding in people's bushes. He's really something. So, not the best person to have on your side, but the best person if you're looking for evidence of the devil.
Yes.
So they go to Abitha's farm and Wallace brutally attacks her and clearly aims to kill her. So she calls upon her magic bees and they attack Wallace and drive him away.
Mhm.
Which, like, yes, queen, get it. But that's the evidence they need to arrest her because there are witnesses and no one else was attacked by the bees. And she was like mumbling a spell. It wasn't great. It was not great. So it turns into a precursor mob, if you will, who go to the Reverend's house with Wallace and they all start presenting their cases about Abitha. A bunch of the neighborhood girls claim that the charms Abitha had given them are now burning their skin and they didn't know it was witchcraft. And it turns into a whole mob mentality. So the evidence is overwhelming. The sheriff goes to arrest Abitha and she doesn't come quietly. So they beat her and kick her senseless.
Good.
Which seems like overkill since there's like 5 men and Abitha and her 1 musket, but okay. So Samson is nowhere to be found, which is unfortunate because he clearly would have saved her in any of these circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
But he's off on a journey with the indigenous tribe. He's off to meet their leader, although this guy isn't really their leader. He just like lives on the outskirts of their tribe in a cave. But he thinks that this man will be able to tell him more about himself because he keeps having visions of him, and also Forrest keeps telling him to stay away from this guy. And Samson has kind of realized, like, anything Forrest says, I'm going to do the opposite.
Yeah.
So he meets a shaman who shows him his past, and he was sacrificed by the wild folk to become their devil, basically, like their leader, who is also a devil. And since they changed him, he has slaughtered whole cities. And basically, the shaman says that won't stop. He can't fight his true nature. And if he goes back to the woods, his only path forward is to be the devil.
Mm-hmm.
And Samson doesn't want to do that anymore because he has discovered this whole other side of life where he has this like amazing friendship and love for Abitha. And he's like, I don't want to just be like slaying and killing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So Samson is like, no, thank you. I'd like to go to sleep, please, because I don't want to slaughter a whole bunch of people anymore. And so the shaman is like, bet. Let me do some voodoo shit, and puts him into a deep sleep where millions of tiny spiders invade his brain hole.
Don't like that.
And those tiny spiders put a barrier up against the memories of his violence. I personally would take the violence over the spiders.
Hands down.
But, it's a personal decision. I would, however, like to sleep. Just indefinitely. I'm so tired. But back to Abitha, who is really missing Samson. He's over here napping with the spiders. And very, a la Ron in Chamber of Secrets.
Yeah.
And Aragog. Anyway, so back to Abitha, who's now going to trial. And the trial goes pretty much as expected in, Puritan culture. No one will listen to Abby. The town girls are making up lies. But the Reverend's wife gets roped into things because she used an ointment that Abby had brought to their home for her daughter's measles, which ended up saving her daughter's life.
Yeah.
And so now Goody Carter is charged with conspiring with a witch.
Mm-hmm.
And she's sentenced to torture, basically to get her to confess guilt, and Abby is sentenced to hanging. So,
yay.
It starts to get real fucking dark from this point on. They bring the women to the stocks, where they are shoved into tiny little boxes where they have to be bent up like pretzels. And Abby's leg is broken, so they just pretzel that baby right in there.
Mm-hmm.
Not before Abby is pummeled with manure and stones.
Mm-hmm.
And basically they forget about Abitha for a little while. They got to focus on Goody Carter because basically they need her to confess, because it's going to look really bad if they falsely accused and imprisoned a reverend's wife.
Yeah, I know.
But of course, they don't want the truth. They want their version of the truth. So they're going to continue to torture Sarah until they get what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And she refuses to confess because she knows that she did nothing wrong, and she doesn't want, she thinks that if she falsely confesses, it will damn her soul for eternity.
Yeah, she's so strong-willed in this moment because she keeps getting tortured, but she's still staying so true to her morality.
And it's so jarring because of all of the quote unquote religious women in this town.
Mm-hmm.
She is the only one who actually values her faith, and she does kind of go against what the other townspeople want. Like, she's helped Abitha, she's taken her into her home and accepted her help, which are things that go against their teachings. But at the end of the day, she's the one who has the realest relationship with God. And so she really feels that if she admits to something that isn't true, that she'll damn her soul for eternity and then will go to hell anyway.
Yes.
Okay, so she refuses to confess until they get to their ultimate torturous act. And this is fucked. So they put a wooden door on top of her body as she's laying on the ground, and they begin to stack rocks on top of it to squish her. And she seems like she will still rather die than confess. But her daughter comes and begs her to confess so that she doesn't lose her mother. And that's the thing that changes it for Sarah.
Yeah.
So she does confess, and the question of Sarah's innocence becomes obviously about the men's egos and covering their own asses instead of the truth, because obviously this wasn't the truth and they don't care. And it's obviously a way to get back at the Reverend. So it's not about Sarah at all. And Abitha is definitely shocked and discouraged by this because Sarah was standing so strong. But Abby has her own things to worry about, since they are now going to hang her by her ankles upside down from a tree and let her die a slow and painful death, basically by the blood just like all going to her brain hole and like exploding it.
Yeah.
I'm not a scientist,
Psychotic.
but it sounds insane.
Mm-hmm.
But she continues to cry out for Samson to save her, but he's not coming because he's sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
But Forrest, Sky, and Creek know they have to save Samson. So they travel to the cave where the shaman is keeping him, and they're able to convince Samson that the shaman is not actually helping him, and it's his plan to trap Samson, but not for his own good. So this whole time, Samson has, like we said, kind of been rejecting everything that Forrest says because Forrest wants him to be this slayer, but he comes around to this idea and he's like, maybe I shouldn't be sleeping with these spiders inside my brain. Maybe there is another way. So Samson's able to summon some strength within himself and break free from the mask prison he's in and destroy the 100 masks on the cave wall, all of which were basically slaughtered beings that were feeding the shaman's immortality and strength. So once the masks are destroyed, the shaman is also destroyed. But not before killing poor Forrest.
I know
Forrest is kind of an asshole and he tried to kill Abby, but it's still sad that he dies this way. Because at the end of the day, he just wanted Samson to live to his true potential.
Yeah.
Of slaying left and right. So Samson is kind of resurrected in a way because he's no longer the goat that the shaman had made him into. It's confusing. That part's unclear. But the point is, he's now a huge, beautiful stag, and he sets off to save Abitha. He finally figured out who he truly is and was meant to be. He says, I am the father of the wild folk, the guardian of Mother Earth. I am the shepherd and I am the slayer. I am life and I am death. So the whole time he's been fighting good versus evil, life versus death, and now he's realizing I am all of it. I can be both. And so he goes to Abby, he frees her from her restraints, and he offers her a choice. Choice one is for him to carry her away to somewhere far away where she can live in hiding, but also with a broken and disabled body for the rest of her life. Or choice two is to walk with him and become one with him. And to be fair, Samson is an honest devil, okay? Because he tells her, he does warn her that this option will come with more blood. His duty is to protect Mother Earth, and he's going to slaughter anyone who threatens that. And he says, if you walk with the beast, you become the beast. So, you know, it's not the kind of devil that we see a lot of times in these types of like fairy tales or retellings where, you know, the devil's the deceiver and tricks Eve into eating the apple and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, Samson is like, this is what's good. Are you in or are you out? Now, beginning of the book, Abby, who was so terrified of the unknown of religion and wanting to do as much as she could to be on the quote unquote right path, would never have taken this choice. But beaten, bloody, eye for vengeance Abby is like, let's fucking get it. She's got no soul left, so she might as well give it over to the Slayer. And as she moves in to drink Samson's blood to start the magic, she says the most iconic line ever, if it is a witch they want, then a witch they shall have.
Yeah, that was a good line.
Goddamn right. And then Samson says it again later. He's like, if it's a devil they want, a devil they'll have. I'm like, you guys, you're crazy. So she gets a vision of her mother and the other ancestors, and she becomes one with their circle. So she is the 13th witch. And so it turns out her mother's magic may have been filled with love, but it had some darkness to it too. So she allows the serpent into her body, and then we start my favorite part of this book, where Abby gets her motherfucking revenge. And she says, let's go, Samson. We got some shit to take care of.
Mm-hmm.
So Samson explains the rules, basically. He's like, we're hard to kill, but not impossible to kill.
Mm-hmm.
And we can call on all of the animals and insects in nature to help us fight.
Mm-hmm.
So she starts moving through the town, systematically slaughtering.
Mm-hmm.
But very importantly, she spares those who helped her. Though there are very few who did. But the sheriff, she turns a bunch of insects on him, and then she kind of has them retreat and says to him, like, hey, you gave me that tea yesterday. That was nice of you. And then she's like, run. And he's like, ugh, you know. So she does let him live, but she gives him a little scare, just so he knows. But how crazy that giving tea to this woman is the reason that his life is spared. The most, like, basic of human acts to another human.
But she doesn't get treated that way anyways, so.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, like, this was such a kind act because everyone else was treating her absolutely horribly.
Even before, like, she was outed as a witch.
100%. So as she is going through the town, she keeps transforming. Her body is turning goat-like, but her teeth and her eyes are snake-like.
Mm-hmm.
We get a lot of mashups in this book. There's a lot of different animals. So she heads to Wallace's house, breaks his legs, one of his arms, and a hand, and leaves the wood mites to eat him, and also presumably to eat his house.
Yeah.
And as this is all happening, the townsfolk gather in the meeting house to barricade themselves together because they know that the devil is afoot.
Mm-hmm.
And as Abby is hunting Ansel, she gets within firing range, and she's hit in the chest 6 times by the townsfolk's guns, which is too much for even Samson's magic to fix.
Yeah.
And Samson gets pissed because Abby is his best friend. And he needs to avenge her now. And this is when he's like, if you want a devil, I'll be a devil, motherfuckers. So he calls upon a ton of dead animals, and they attack the townspeople. And Samson burns the meeting house to the ground, which, you know, I feel like Samson is not a impulsive devil.
Yeah.
Because he wanted to rip these people limb from limb, but he did realize that that was a threat to his own safety. So he's like, fuck it, I'll just burn this place. You know, maybe kill all of these with one flame. Anyway, so he takes Ansel, because the whole reason that Ansel is still alive is because Abitha very specifically was targeting him because he was one of the reasons that, you know, all of this happened to her. And she didn't get to carry that out. So Samson is like, okay, no problem. I got this for you. So he takes Ansel and Abitha's dead body with him to the woods. And first he calls the witchy ancestors, and they bring Mother Earth herself.
Yeah.
So Samson is able to take all of her power within him, and he spills Ansel's blood on the old tree, which brings the magic back, because yes, we're back to the tree. And all of a sudden, the tree is sprouting, and the forest floor is alive with activity. And as Samson grabs a fruit from the tree and pours it over Abitha's body, she breathes. Abitha lives, bitches. And we cut right to the epilogue, which is 1972, where Abitha has a little hut in the woods, and she's living her hippie fairy witch life. And anyone who wanders into her woods becomes a meal for all of the wild folk and for her and Samson.
Yeah, basically.
The end. Now, the best part of this book by far is the pictures at the end.
Oh, yes.
So obviously now we know these are illustrations that Brom himself did. And there's pictures of forest, creek, and sky, which were not what I expected them to be.
Mm-mm.
They have, it's like, instead of them having faces of children, it's like the animal is opening its mouth, and inside the mouth, the face is coming out. And then the children have these little creepy pointy teeth. It's terrifying. And then there's pictures of Samson, first as Samson, and then again as Slewfoot, which is what he is at the end, the stag. And then there's a picture of Abby, and again, a picture of Abby as the witch at the end, which I loved. So we have things to discuss because a lot happens in this book. So I did see some people on Reddit who are very disappointed with Abby's revenge spree and thought that it lacked depth because it didn't show that dichotomy between good and evil that had kind of been planted early on in the book. So there's no way that she shows like struggling with that evil, or there's no way that the goodness comes back. You know what I mean?
But why would it?
Exactly. But I guess because of the struggle that she's been having this whole book about, is this really good? Is this really evil? Is what I'm doing, you know, of God, or is it of the devil? And it's kind of this like back and forth dichotomy of how can she still be doing the quote unquote right thing. The point is, the fact that there isn't that is what actually makes me like this book more.
Well, yeah, because the entire town turns their back on her. So why would she, at that point, I think that she realizes that kind of going to the dark side is the better choice for her, because she's always been an outcast in this town anyway. So,
and she has been pushed to her complete breaking point. Like she has nothing left to live for. She sees that there is no good. There's no convincing these men that they were wrong and for her to go and live a normal life. She's had her body broken and beaten. Her husband is dead. She's lost her farm. And there is no good to be had. So I get what they're saying, but I don't think it would have made sense.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm kind of surprised that, I mean, everyone takes a book a different way, clearly. But I think that's like an interesting route to go down, because I feel like the entire buildup of the story was to get to this point where she just kind of turns herself over to that impulse of being a witch.
Yeah, I agree. And there's also the fact that nothing in this book is really what we would expect anyway. Like, you have the wild folk and how they aren't innocent, like little woodland creatures like we would normally see, but they're bloodthirsty and they have that dark nature to them. And this kind of shows, this whole book shows that everyone has that dark nature within them.
Yes.
And kind of it determines, you know, if they choose to embrace it, but also if they have a reason to embrace it. Like Samson doesn't want to kill for the sake of killing. And so when Forrest is like, oh, you just got to go kill, he's like, why would I do that? But then when he's like, oh, I have to defend Mother Earth, fuck yeah, I'm killing. And Abitha is like, oh, I don't want to kill anyone, until she's like, wait a minute, these people don't deserve my mercy. So as far as witchiness goes, what felt familiar to you about this story and what felt unique?
In what way? Like,
kind of just witchiness in general. So like, we obviously get some of the cliches.
Yeah, like I definitely felt like the whole trial and her being hung and everything, that was definitely like Salem witch trial-esque.
And the flying on the broomstick, the marks of the witch that the villagers look for, which is a very common thing. The remedies and the talismans that so often we see, you know, people use them in secret and then they can be used against whoever the witch is. But I did love some of the unique elements in here where Abby is getting power from her coven of mothers.
Yeah, that was a really fun way to go about it.
Mm-hmm. And there's already so much going on in this story, so they don't really dive into it. All they just say is that, like, there's 3 witches per season,
Mm-hmm.
and she is the last one in this coven.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I liked that the spirit of all of these animals and creatures are helping them. So it's like the dead and the living working together.
Yeah.
Because we don't always get that, especially in witchy books, we don't always get that element of the dead at all.
Yeah, there's a little bit more like spirituality to it.
Mm-hmm. We can also just discuss broadly puritanism in general, which on its head doesn't seem very relevant, but when you see how our administration and our country in general right now is trying to force Christian beliefs on everyone,
yeah,
it's very reminiscent of this time. So I think the most important similarity is that during the Puritanism religious movement, it was new and people were using it in a way that was open to their own interpretations, because there were certain things they wanted to get away from as far as the Catholic Church, and they wanted to, quote unquote, simplify religion and the relationship with God. But there wasn't necessarily a playbook for how that was going to be done. So everyone could kind of use it however they saw fit. And we see that in this book, Wallace especially, who decides that he can use violence in order to accomplish his end goal, because in his mind, that's what God wants. That's what his father would want. That's what Edward would want. Also, the gossiping women who want to use their religion as a way to make them better than Abitha, but it's polluting their whole personalities. And they're the ones who are quick to ask for her charms and her talismans when it suits them. But the way that that's relevant today is that so much of the absolute horror that's going on in our society is being based off of this convoluted interpretation of religion. Yeah. And besides the fact that we are supposed to have separation of church and state, and we are not supposed to have a national religion, and if this was being done with a different religion, say Islam, for example, the pearl clutching would be out of this world. But the point is, like, pro-life, yeah, but not all life. Pro-life when it's a fetus in the womb, but not when it's a child in school who doesn't have anything to eat. Anti-immigrant, which is specifically against what Jesus taught. Jesus was brown. I don't know how many times we can tell this to Christians and they don't understand it. Why do you think he's a white man? I could go on, but it boils down to this need for control and rewriting the narrative to use it as control.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same as the townsfolk did, same as our government is doing. And they're twisting and turning any small piece of this Christian faith or the Bible or whatever, and then blowing it into something completely outrageous that it was. First of all, who knows what it was even meant to be? The Bible was written by men, but I'm not going to get into an argument with Christians about that. But the point is, you can't just pick and choose which parts of it you want to believe and which parts are relevant and, oh, this is what they actually meant by this.
Yeah.
But when these absolute monsters who are running our government right now put these horrible things that they're doing in the pretty little package of Christianity, then all of these other people who are following them can justify it and say, oh, but it's my religion. It's what God would want. Oh, but look at how perfect and religious I am. So that they don't come off as bloodthirsty, xenophobic, racist, Anyway, it's horrifying. And the fact is that history repeats itself and humans are so fucking stupid that they don't learn from the past.
It's very true.
So if you thought that we were going to go one episode without talking about the government, you were wrong. Ding, ding, ding. Okay, let's get back to Abitha. Okay, so a big thing in this book is sense of identity. We talked about it a lot, about Abitha kind of like wrestling back and forth, but also her identity of coming to America, which is so different than where she came from. And she came from like living with her dad,
Yeah.
never being on her own, to going to a completely different country and, you know, getting lucky with Edward, but still having to conform and follow so many rules. And then her journey as a widow who needs to be a provider and a fighter while still remaining godly and cowed to the other men.
Mm-hmm.
So she definitely feels the need to stifle herself. And even at the end, when she goes on her power trip, she acknowledges that it's not who she is. She is a product of what society has done to her.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so apparent that the way the society, the oppression in this society is affecting people in different ways. Like she is stifling her true nature, and it turns into her being ganged up on, her being othered, her being treated differently. Whereas like the other women, because of the way society is, they're bullies. They're thinking that they're just, it's bringing out the worst sides of their personality because of this society.
Yeah, it's very Mean Girl-esque.
Yeah. And Abitha is obviously struggling with that because she doesn't want to be like these women. She doesn't care what these women think of her, but she knows that in this society, perception is everything.
Yeah, 100%.
And, you know, even just her being 2 minutes to church, or her having a hanging threat, or her having one curl of hair coming out of her bonnet means that she's, you know, consorting with the devil, which like she is. Abitha, I don't like that you proved them right. You know what I mean? But then we also get Samson's journey to find himself. He's also going with this completely, these two identities warring against each other. And to him, killing comes so easily.
Yeah.
But so does magic. So does this camaraderie with Abitha that he never thought he was capable of. And we even get the symbolism of this when Samson has those visions of the two warring shadows fighting against one another. And that is so symbolic of his true nature. And like we said at the end, he does embrace that he is both of those things. But it takes him a long time to get there.
Yeah, because he's also kind of like foggy brained and doesn't really know what he is.
He's being tricked by, basically he can't trust anything anyone is saying to him.
Yeah.
Because they all have their own selfish interests. Yeah, exactly. Like the forest, the shaman, like they all want Samson to do their bidding, basically. So let's talk about Abitha's choice at the end. Basically, it's an impossible choice because either way, she would be losing a part of herself. What would you have done in this situation?
To choose to either stay human or to become
basically
magic?
To not just to stay human, but to kind of escape from this society, this town, and go somewhere else where you could live out your life in hiding, broken and hurt, but away from these motherfuckers. Or to embrace the magic and start taking names.
I mean, like, I would embrace the magic just because that's I'm very interested in that world. And especially, like, coming from, like, you know, her point of view and how she's treated. She's already alone as it is, so just going into hiding would just be more loneliness. Whereas in this life of becoming, you know, evil incarnate, like, it's better because at least she'll be surrounded she'll still be surrounded by life. It looks different than what it would look like if she had stayed human, but realistically it's better because she always was kind of like a wild child anyways, so
and she got a sense of that companionship with Samson.
Yeah,
I never would have been able to live knowing that the men who did this to me were out there not only like enjoying their lives, but continuing to do it to others, because obviously she is not the last one that this would happen to, and going unpunished. So they deserved what they got and worse, in my opinion. I think the most frustrating and upsetting part about this book and any other book that kind of touches on the puritanism in the 1600s is you can 100% understand how this would happen. How the group think and the mob mentality can put an innocent woman to death.
Yeah, and it's just once you have like a person that's in the place of power to start to fill their heads with their beliefs, you know, you don't want to cross that person and you just kind of believe whatever they say.
Mm-hmm. And to that point, like everyone knew that Wallace was horrible. Everyone knew how he was. He was still able to bend the will of all these town leaders by running off to bigger and more powerful men and whining like a little fucking baby.
Well, I was going to say, and that makes him not even like worthy of anything because he can't even handle his own problems by himself. He needs to get assistance.
Mm-hmm. And he was looking for a scapegoat from the very beginning. He wanted to pawn his debts and his own mistakes over onto Edward. And, you know, he rationalized that to himself. In this book, there's a lot of racism against Indigenous people.
Yeah.
It was alarming.
I didn't love it, but I feel like that's how it was, though.
Yes. So,
you know what I mean? Like, it's as much as it sucks to read it, I'm sure that that's a pretty accurate representation of how it was back then.
I completely agree. I feel like, so when it was from the townspeople and they're calling the Indigenous people savages.
Yeah.
And thinking that they're the reason for the destruction at the end instead of the literal devil himself. Not comparable,
not for nothing,
but
it was just in history in general, it was their land first.
Oh, 100%. So I'm like, okay, these are horrible people saying horrible things. So like that tracks. That's appropriate. That, not appropriate, but that's familiar to how it probably was, like you just said.
It's literally he's telling history. Like he's not fabricating these situations. This is pretty spot on to what I could imagine happened in those times.
And that's why this part I'm not okay with, but I understand it and it makes sense in the story. But when it was Wallace convincing Jesus Thunderbolt, which like Jesus Thunderbolt, convincing him to help him steal the corn, even though it was like, oh, Jesus specifically is an idiot. It was still portrayed as these people are around to do what Wallace wants and something that he would never ask his own people to do. It made the Indigenous people look shady and money hungry.
Which is, like, that's what people still do now.
Oh, and 100% this was the Puritans' view of Indigenous people back then and still now. But I still didn't like that part. You know what I mean? Like it felt a little too specific.
Yeah.
And a little too unnecessary. I mean, I get it. Like I said, it's Wallace who's a shitty person, so it's not like shitty people do shitty things. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what it is. And you know, he necessarily it's kind of like if you put it into the perspective, it's the people that are in power that don't want to get their hands dirty, so they put that responsibility onto someone who they believe is less than them, so that if it falls back on them, it's, you know, they're not technically in like the spotlight. But that's like what happens. People of lesser status consistently get fucked over by people in power because they don't, you know, you want to be a man, but you can't get your hands dirty. So it's kind of like, okay.
And that's what makes it so disgusting because specifically in this instance, like you said, this was the Indigenous people's land to begin with. This wasn't these fucking white people's land to begin with. But also, even in current times, like just because people are born into different socioeconomic statuses or socioeconomic classes or
races,
territories
like
or races, like that means that they're less than, that means that there's this hierarchy of like the white man gets to step on everyone else. It's disgusting. And it's not based on anything. Like the fact that that racism exists when literally the color of our skin is based on how much melanin is in our skin. Like, it's literally just the way we were born. Why the fuck does it matter? That's a whole nother topic. We're not going to get into that. Any hoozle. So, what did you think of the horror element or the scare factor?
I don't think it was scary. I can understand the horror aspect of it. It's kind of like more like a folklore horror.
100%, yeah.
You know, I wouldn't say that I was necessarily like scared like September House scared. It was more like creepy.
Yeah. Yeah, and this hits on, some of the other societal horror that we talk about where it's like, oh, the scary thing about this is that I could see it happening.
Yeah.
And I know that it did happen. Not like not all of it. Not like forest and creek and sky. God, what nightmares are made of. But I did, because there's the blood, there's the gore.
Yeah, no, there's definitely like a lot of mayhem
and you have the supernatural, like we said, with the ghosts. You have the sci-fi and the fantasy. I think folk horror is definitely the biggest subgenre, but I do really like how it puts a bunch of different subgenres together. Because a lot of times when you see this folk horror with witches, you get a little bit of supernatural or sci-fi, but you don't get all of this in it.
No, I agree.
Like the fantasy especially. All right. Is there anything else you want to discuss before we get to our ratings?
I don't think so.
I feel like so much happened in this book.
I know. There was it was a lot.
And also, for the record, so I was reading on my Kindle. I'm trying to think how long the total book was. It was only like 4.5 or 5 hours. But, because obviously I read fast. But when Abitha makes the choice, there's still like an hour left in this book. And I'm like, oh, fuck yeah. So like, that something's about to happen. And like that really is like the second act of the story.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So our rating scale is flower crowns.
Oh, Samson and his little flower crown.
Yeah, that had hair and
sweet boy.
Bones in it. Did you see that it was on his head in the illustration at the end? It was very cute. Okay, so how many flower crowns did you give this?
I will be completely transparent with you. This wasn't my cup of tea.
I know. I saw your rating on Goodreads.
I gave it a 3.5. Okay. I like the visual that you put of like a second half. So I liked the second act. The beginning was very drawn out and slow, and I was a little hard for me to follow, actually, because there was so much going on. And mainly with like Samson, because I couldn't figure out what his story was. And so it kind of sucked that it took until like over 50% in the book to figure out who he was. Like I would have preferred that to be kind of more upfront. But this whole second half of the book, I did enjoy. Like once it hit the ground running, because even like when they were on trial, like that seemed kind of drawn out and everything. When the two with Sarah and like Abitha being, you're just waiting for Samson to like finally wake up out of the stupor that he's in, and so, I think that sucks for like Abitha's story, that she had to wait for this dude to be like, oh no, I am great. I am like all powerful. So I kind of wish that his storyline was different, but realistically, when you get to the point where she becomes him and they do this revenge plot and what she becomes, I think that was beautiful and that was executed wonderfully. And that saved the book for me. Cause other than that, I was like, if we weren't doing this for the podcast, I would have DNF'd. But I didn't, but I'm glad obviously that I stuck with it because it did have a very satisfying ending, which is good.
Yeah. I think that's all very valid. I think this is definitely a niche book. That's why I said it's kind of a bit of a cult classic.
Which like makes sense though, because I feel like this is like this, if
if this was something that I like to read, I think that this was probably beautifully done. Because like I do like historical, but I don't like this historical.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I see which parts you're talking about for sure, especially like the mask thing gets a little weird when he's with the shaman and stuff. I'm like, there's a lot going on.
The mask thing, I think, could have been a really cool plot point if it had been expanded more.
Or introduced earlier.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, I agree. I think that it had so many great elements. But no surprise, I gave this 5 flower crowns.
Yeah.
I definitely forgot how weird the beginning is. The beginning is fucking weird. And as I was reading it, I was like, oh, Heather is going to be like, what the hell is Kelsey having me read? Especially when they're like forest, sky, and creek. I was like, y'all are crazy. And I could definitely see how some of the fantasy...
but like, I didn't mind them. I thought that they were fun characters. Like,
yeah, it's like
not even...
when they're first...
I think what it was is that it was too historical, and so like they felt out of place,
right?
And I think that's, and it was hard for me to find the connect, and I just kind of wish that was, I would have preferred more horror in the beginning of the book, to be honest.
Yeah, I know what you mean, especially like we said at the beginning, when it's Samson is having this whole like sci-fi fantasy storyline, and then Abitha and Edward are just over here like trying to get their crops to grow.
Yeah, and like Samson like disappears like 3 fucking times. I'm like, bro. I'm like, how many midlife crises do you need to have in this book before you finally like discover who you are? So it was just like,
and
it was
like
just
he knows Abby needs him.
I know. So I don't know. Like it wasn't terrible. Realistically, like I really love how it ended, and it was, which is what matters in a book. I feel like granted, yes, the beginning and the middle is always important, but I feel like it's the opposite for us sometimes, where we love the beginning and we love like the meat and bones of the story, but when you get to the ending, it can sometimes be very anticlimactic. And I felt like this was not that. It delivered on like so many different levels, and I appreciate a woman's revenge plot. And I thought it was done great. Like I thought, like I liked when she was when she let Wallace's wife and daughter go. Like she could have been an asshole and then like, fuck all y'all, like fuck this entire family. But she's like, I will let you, exactly, like I'll let you go. So like, so then here's the point too, where it comes to that point where you said that people on Reddit were like, well, she didn't fight enough for humanity and being evil. But like in those moments she did, though, because she could have just been an evil completely 100% and killed everybody, but she didn't. She still had some humanity left to let people go.
And even when she stops and talks to the Reverend and says like,
exactly, like
explains why Sarah changed her mind or why she confessed.
The Reverend was a surprise character for me because you hated him for the entirety of the book, and you would think that when he discovers who Abitha becomes, when he discovers Samson, you would expect him to become a bigger asshole, but then he actually is surprising. And he's like, okay, like this is weird, but I'm gonna go along with it. And like he's very gracious to Samson and to Abitha, when you would expect the complete opposite. For how his character was written.
Well, he's very much like, okay, he's open-minded to the point of, okay, everything I thought I knew is wrong, and now I have to kind of catch up with that.
But like I feel like none of the other male characters could have gotten to that point.
No, definitely not. Yeah, I think what you said makes a lot of sense about, you know, when you finish a book and if the ending wasn't great. This is how I felt with the last couple like Riley Sagers that we've read, is that like the book can be so good and the writing can be so good, and then you get to the ending and you're like, okay, that leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Now I don't like the whole book because that happened.
It's very common, and like it happens for me like in romances too, where like, you know, and it's because I'm like a big like don't like third act breakups, but they're in basically every single fucking romance book that you read. So it's like
they're essential to the
and it's like, but it doesn't have to be like that. So I mean, the way that this book went was a surprise, because I didn't know what was going to happen, and going into it feeling like I wasn't going to enjoy it, and I kept waiting and kept waiting. So when it finally got to that point the point that I was waiting for, I was very satisfied.
Yeah, I definitely think that, like I said, some of those fantasy elements can feel a little cheesy, but as you see Samson developing as a character, everything starts to feel a little more authentic and a little more necessary, at least to his storyline. Also, Abby is that bitch. And I absolutely love her. She's one of my favorite main characters
Yeah.
of all time.
I mean, I liked her throughout the entirety of the book. Like, she was like
Yeah.
a little annoying at times, but most of the time, I think that she was an out of place woman in a time that knows she's out of place, but she like could give zero fucks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, at the end of the day, she gives all these men what they deserve, but she still did show mercy and kindness to many of the women before she transformed into the witch, and after she transformed into the witch.
So it's like, I don't agree with that whole thing that people say that she didn't think about it hard enough, because I think she did.
Yeah, and she still wanted what was best for Edward and Samson. I think that she's a very complex character, and I think that Samson is too. Like, this goat man is such a complex and tortured character, and so I think that the writing in that sense is amazing, because I mean, you see this a lot with like good fantasy writers, that they're able to make these made up ridiculous characters into these complicated human feeling characters,
which is like crazy to me. Like, I could never.
Yeah, and that's why it's like, yes, there's so much going on in this book, and at times it does feel kind of disconnected, but the way that he was able to bring it all back together, and because of Abby's choice at the end, and not just that she decides like, oh, I'm going to use my magic and get revenge, but I loved the way that Samson presented it to her as a choice, and she had to make that. It's not like frickin' Edward over here. I mean, Carlisle changing people into vampires and they don't have a choice. She knew what it would come with. And so I liked that was kind of, all drawn out. And then she calls on the power from her mother and all of her ancestors and the snake and like all of these things that, like the goat and the snake, that historically are associated with the devil and are associated with evil things. They end up where her power comes from. I think the only way that I kind of like understand what people are saying is that like she does kind of prove them right by being a witch. She does prove them right by Samson being kind of a devil, and by, you know what I mean? Like, so I get that aspect of it, but they already made up their minds anyway.
I know. Like, I liked that about the book.
Yeah. Oh, if 100% if Abitha didn't have the ending that she did, this book would not be as popular as it is. This book would not be as good as it is. Like, it is all about her transformation and her kind of trying to stifle herself through the entire book, and then at the end being like, I got this power and I'm going to fucking use it.
100%.
And Samson is just like, let's go, Abby. And they're just galloping through the streets.
It's like that song. What is that? It's like, come on, Barbie, let's go party. It's like, come on, Abby, let's go party.
Forrest.
Yeah, I mean, he was a little dick, so like he didn't deserve his ending, but also
yeah, I mean, he definitely sucked. But at least he died a little bit of a hero. He saved Samson before he died.
He did.
So
he did.
We'll accept it. All right. Anything else you want to add?
No, I don't think so.
I think the moral of the story and this episode is that we would never survive in puritanical America. Also, someone on TikTok commented on my post about Slewfoot and was like, I would never have survived. I would literally have a nameplate on the stocks because I'd be there so often.
I love that.
That shit killed me. I was like, I just got the best visual of that. Okay, so yeah, listen, all I can say is that I am a successful person because I would have been burned at the stake. You know what I mean?
100%.
All right, that's all we have for you today. We struggled, but we got through it. That's all we have for you today. More than you could ever ask for. If you like what you heard, please make sure to follow, subscribe, and rate and review the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Oh, pause for 1 second. I just want to say that, wait, are you aware of all the ICE things going around with Spotify?
Yes, the ads.
Okay. Yes. So we are aware that this is a thing. Spotify selects their own ads, and even if
Mhm.
you try to filter out the ads that you don't want on your show, it's all based on like geotagging, and it's an automatic thing.
Mhm.
If you guys do hear any ICE ads, please tell us. We do
Yeah.
want to know, because I have heard a lot of other creators are reaching out to Spotify, specifically asking if they can be blocked. So just know that we are aware that it's happening. I don't know of any specifically that have been on our show.
Mhm.
But we 100% do not agree with that. We're fuck ICE around here.
Mhm.
And yeah, so we just want to know if that's coming up, but just know that we did not hand select those ads, and we do not agree nor support them. And
I feel like that should be obvious.
I know, if you got this far, you already know. You know what I'm saying? Imagine listening to our episode and being like, wow, and they support ICE. That's crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah, could never be us. Okay, so that was just a spiel for no reason. Anyway, all right. If you have any book recommendations or questions for us, you can email us at fullybookedcalfpod@gmail.com. Also, be sure to follow us on TikTok and Instagram at fullybookedcalfpod to see our upcoming reads. Thanks for checking us out, and remember,
If you need us, we're fully booked.
bye.